Alright, we're going to continue in section 6.4 with talking about factoring trinomials. Now, we've already done some factoring trinomials. For example, I might ask you to factor x squared plus x minus 20. And we did that by the guess and check method. So we noticed that to get x squared out front, we had to have x and x. And then we looked at the different ways to get 20. And we decided for this problem that we should use a plus 5 and a minus 4 because that'll give us the minus 1 in the middle. So when you have a trinomial, and this first number is the number 1, the guess and check method works very efficiently. Now, unfortunately, when that first number is not the number 1, that guess and check method isn't so good. For example, let's say I asked you to factor 8x squared plus 9x minus 14. Well, here comes the problem. To get 8x squared in front, I could use 4x or I could use 2x. Or the other possibility is I could use 8x and 1x. And I don't know which one's the right one. There's no way to look at this and just know. On the other hand, to get a 14 on the end, I could use a 2 and a 7, or I could use a 14 and a 1. And what we're going to see here in just a second is that if you switch the order, it makes a difference. So there's a lot of possibilities to try, and just looking at this, I have no way of knowing really what the right answer is. So, for no particular reason at all, I'm just going to try 4x and 2x, and then I'll try 2 and 7. So I make a guess. And then I notice I have a minus 14 on the end here, so one of these has to be a minus and one has to be a plus. I don't know which one should be the minus and which one should be the plus either. I'm just going to try this and see what happens. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do FOIL. When I do FOIL, I would have 8x squared plus 28x minus 4x minus 14. And I notice that I get the 8x squared out front, that's correct. I get the minus 14 on the end, but I don't get the 9x in the middle. I get 24x. So that's not the right answer. But I don't know what's wrong. I don't know if the 4x and the 2x is wrong, or if the 2 and the 7 is wrong, or if I simply have these in the wrong order. What I mean by that is, look what happens when I switch those two numbers. When I do FOIL now, I'm going to get a different answer. Let's see. That's 8x squared plus 8x minus 14x minus 14. And I notice I still don't have the right answer. I've got not 9x in the middle. So here's what I know. I know that the combination of 4x with 2x and 7 and 2 doesn't work. So now the question is, should I try 14 and 1 or should I try 8x and 1x? There's no way of knowing. You would just have to keep guessing until you happen to stumble upon the right answer. Now, I'm going to admit, I've seen some people who have fantastic number skills and can look at this and run the combinations in their head almost instantly and come up with the correct answer the first time almost every time. Most of us are not like that. So for most of us, I think the guess and check method is not very efficient here. So we're going to do something called factor by grouping. And here's the way factor by grouping works when you have a trinomial. You multiply the numbers on the end. So I'm going to take 8 times negative 14. And I grab my calculator, 8 times negative 14. My calculator said that's a negative 112. Now what I need to do is I need to factor negative 112 so that the two numbers add up to 9. So what I'm doing is I'm taking negative 112. I tried dividing it by 6. That didn't work. 112 divided by 4 is 28. 28 and 4 would not give me 9. How about 112 divided by 14 would be 8. 14 and 8 is not going to give me a 9. 112 divided by 12 maybe? Nope. 12 divided by 11? Nope. 112 divided by 7 is 16. Alright, so I spend a little time with my calculator. Now, a lot of times the number is not going to be as big as 112, so it's not going to be this hard. But I noticed if I took 112 and divided it by 7, I got 16. So I'm going to use a negative 7 and a positive 16. Negative 7 and 16 add up to be 9, and negative 7 times 16 is negative 112. Alright, so now we go back to our polynomial here, and we rewrite it. I'm going to rewrite this as 8x squared, and then I'm not going to write 9x in the middle. I'm going to write minus 7x plus 16x minus 14. So that's why you need these two numbers to add up to 9, add up to the number in the middle. You split the number in the middle, and now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. When we have 4 pieces, we know exactly what to do. We group them in pairs. We take out the greatest common factor. It's an x for the first group, 8x minus 7, and it's a 2 for the second group, 8x minus 7. And I'm quite convinced that I'm doing this correctly because my parentheses match perfectly, signs and all. So there's my answer, 8x minus 7 times x plus 2. Okay, so the reality is the grouping method is a little bit slow. The advantage of the grouping method is you get the right answer the first time, every time. And that's a good thing. Alright, let's try another one. How about 5x squared plus 13x plus 6. Again, I see that I have 3 terms. First thing I do is I look for a common factor. I don't see one. I notice that this number is not the number 1 right here. When I see that that number is not the number 1, to me, that says I want to try factor by grouping. So I multiply the numbers on the end. 5 times 6 is 30. I now need to factor the number 30 to make it add up to the number in the middle, and I can see how to do that pretty easily. 10 and 3. Now, some people would say, could I write 3 and 10? And the answer is yes, you can write 3 and 10. The order that you put these two numbers here makes absolutely no difference. Okay? And you can just try it if you want. I'm not going to show you that. 5x squared plus 10x plus 3x plus 6. So again, what we've done is we've taken a problem that started with 3 terms and we've written it as a problem with 4 terms. So that gives us 5x squared plus 10x as our first group and 3x plus 6 as our second group. Common term here is a 5x. X plus 2 is left over. And a 3 is common there. X plus 2 is left over. So, answer has to be x plus 2, 5x plus 3. Alright, the last problem I'm going to do, and then I'm going to give you some homework. Factor 8x squared minus 5x minus 6. Okay, I go through the same steps. 3 pieces, no common factor. That number is not the number 1, so that tells me I want to multiply the numbers on the end. 8 times negative 6 is negative 48. Now I have to factor negative 48 to make the two numbers add up to negative 5. And I think here, pretty quickly, we're going to convince ourselves we can't do that. Because the only ways to get 48, I could use 1 and 48. I could use 2 and 24. I could use 3 and something. 3 and 16. 4 and 12. 5 doesn't work. 6 and 8. Those are the only ways to factor the number negative 48. And I look at all those numbers. There's no way I can use any pair to get an answer of negative 5. So what that tells me is that polynomial is prime. That polynomial will not factor. Okay, so now I want you to think about if we tried doing this by the grouping method. If we tried doing this by the grouping method, not the grouping method, I mean the guessing method, we'd have to write down our things, and then we'd have to say, well, it could be 4x and 2x, it could be 8x and 1x. And then it could be 1 and 6, or it could be 6 and 1. It could be 2 and 3, or it could be 3 and 2. You would have to try every single combination, do FOIL with every single one of them, and then finally come to the conclusion that it doesn't work. So, this is a great example of where factor by grouping is really a lot better. Factor by grouping is a lot better when your things are prime. Okay, so homework problems. Let's see, I think I left off with number 3 before, so we'll start with number 4. So the directions for all of these are going to be factor. I'm not going to write down factor over and over and over again. Factor, so number 4, we'll go with 4x squared minus 21x plus 20. Number 5, let's try 9m squared minus 5mp minus 6p squared. And don't let the fact that there's 2 letters there bother you. When you go to write your middle terms, you'll have something mp and then something else mp. And then one more. How about 6x squared plus 9x minus 60. Alright, so there's your 6 homework problems for this section. Bring them to class next time.